Hey everyone, welcome back to Silent Husband Club. We sincerely apologize for the long break, life got in the way. But starting now, we'll do our best to bring you powerful new stories every single day. She thought silence meant surrender. That if he didn't fight back, he had accepted it. But behind every quiet husband, there's a storm waiting to be named, and when it finally breaks, it doesn't shout, it dismantles. If this story grips you even a little, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. It helps more than you know and keeps you updated with every new release. The rain hadn't started yet, but the sky above Hawthorne Bay was thick with warning. The kind of stillness that came right before something changed forever. Inside a quiet, clean two-bedroom house at the end of a sleepy suburban street, I could feel it already, the unraveling. My name is Lena Whitmore. And that night, I stood in the kitchen, my hand trembling slightly as I poured myself a glass of red wine. The clock on the wall said 5:37 p.m. I had exactly 23 minutes left before Gavin, my husband of 7 years, would walk through that door. And when he did, everything we were would begin to shift. I wasn't wearing my usual yoga pants or that old hoodie he always said smelled like lavender. Tonight, I dressed differently, a sleeveless emerald green top, one that hugged me just a little too tightly, one I hadn't worn in years. My makeup was subtle, clean, calculated. I wasn't trying to seduce him. I was trying to prepare him for something I had already convinced myself was necessary. Sierra had been in my ear for months. Bold. Ruthless. Loud. Marriage isn't a prison, she used to say. It's only a cage if you never rattle the bars. She'd been through something like this herself, or at least she said she had. And when she spoke, it made something inside me twitch, some part one thought had gone numb. I used to laugh at her advice. Now I was following it. It wasn't that Gavin was cruel. He wasn't. He was decent, reliable, steady. But that steadiness had become a kind of absence. He came home tired. He'd kiss my forehead, then fall asleep on the couch without asking how my day went. It felt like I was fading. Like I could have disappeared for a week and he wouldn't notice until the laundry piled up. I wanted to feel something again. I wanted fire. And Sierra, with her endless confidence and late-night texts, made me believe I deserved it. Be the fire, she messaged me just an hour earlier. Not the ashes. He'll either bend, or he'll burn. I swallowed the words with a sip of wine. Dinner was ready. Lasagna, his favorite. A bottle of Italian wine chilled in a silver bucket beside the table. Everything in place, everything familiar. My trap wasn't cruel. It was designed to comfort him first. To ease him into the fall. At 6:02, I heard the front door creak. Heavy boots thudded across the hardwood. He stepped in, rain-soaked from the late afternoon drizzle, slinging his work bag over his shoulder. His eyes lit up when he saw the table. "Wow," he said. "Date night?" "Something like that," I answered, handing him a glass of wine. He took it gratefully but didn't drink. He was watching me. That's the thing about Gavin, he didn't say much, but he noticed everything. His eyes scanned me like he already knew something was off. "You okay?" he asked. "I will be," I replied, motioning for him to sit. "Let's eat first." We ate mostly in silence. The food was good. It always was, I took pride in that. But the room felt heavier with every passing minute. Like the house itself knew something was breaking. Then I set my fork down and finally said it. "Gavin, we need to talk." He froze. His shoulders didn't rise or fall. He just looked at me. "I need something," I began, voice steady. "Not from you, exactly, from life." For myself. He blinked slowly. Okay. I felt invisible. Not unloved, just undesired. Like I disappeared in the background. He nodded once. Sierra says. I paused. He raised a brow. She thinks life is short, I continued. That maybe, a little freedom could wake us both up. His jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. I want to date other people, I said finally, the words like metal in my mouth. His wine glass stopped midair. Are you asking for a divorce? He asked. No. No, I said quickly. I want to stay married. But openly. Just for a while. For a few seconds, he just stared at me. No yelling. No broken glass. Just that silence. So you want permission, he said quietly, to be unfaithful. It's not about betrayal. Don't insult me, he cut in. Calm. Cold. Call it what it is. I swallowed. I need this, for me. He stood. Not fast. Not loud. Just stood. His face unreadable. Then I'll move into the guest room tonight. Wait, I said. You're not even going to talk about it. What's there to say? He asked. You've already made your decision. I thought maybe you'd compete. He gave a small, bitter smile. You want to invite the storm and expect me to stand still in it? And with that, he turned, walked down the hallway, and closed the door. I stood there in the kitchen, glass in hand, heart pounding. I thought I'd feel strong. Powerful. Instead, I felt like something ancient had just been woken up inside him. And I was too stunned to see what I had truly unleashed. Gavin didn't slam the door that night. He didn't raise his voice or throw things or sleep on the couch out of spite. He simply relocated. True to his word, he moved into the guest room. Just like that. Clean. Controlled. Cold. I lay in the marital bed alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment over and over. The silence wasn't comforting, it pressed down like a weight. I had imagined freedom would feel exhilarating, maybe even sexy. But instead, I felt something hollow beginning to open inside me. Still, I told myself this was just the beginning of something better. The discomfort, the awkwardness, it was all part of the process. A necessary unraveling before rebirth. And Sierra, she kept feeding that fire. He didn't blow up. Perfect, she said in a late-night call. That means he's rattled. He'll come crawling back. You're reminding him you're still a prize. Still a woman men want. I wanted to believe her. I clung to that narrative, like a life raft in the middle of my own storm. I touched up my lipstick before work the next morning, stared into the mirror, and repeated the lie until it started to sound like truth. This isn't betrayal. This is self-reclamation. That day at the office felt different. Brighter. Like I had stepped into a version of myself I had forgotten existed. I wore a dress I hadn't touched in years. People noticed. Especially one man, Noel. He was quiet, kind, almost fragile in the way some creative men are. He was a consultant, in the building just a few months, barely on anyone's radar. But that day, he saw me. You looked radiant in the hallway this morning, he texted. Just that. Simple. Soft. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. A thank you? A smiley? No. I chose bold. Maybe I dress up for you now. He responded instantly, "I'll take that as an invitation." And just like that, it started. Drinks the next night. Then again. Then again. Each time felt easier. More natural. I told myself it was temporary. Just something to feel alive. But slowly, I began crafting lies, first to Gavin, then to myself. Noel made me feel wanted again. He noticed my perfume. He said I was rare. He made me laugh in ways I hadn't in years. Meanwhile, Gavin remained a ghost inside our own house. He didn't ask questions. Didn't pry. Just watched. Waited. Studied. It was eerie, that stillness, that precision. Gavin wasn't a man of many words. He was a contractor. A builder. A problem solver. He saw patterns. He noticed change. And I was changing. New passwords. Hidden texts. Longer showers. Nervous glances at the front door when my phone buzzed. I thought his silence meant weakness, that he was too broken to react. But Gavin wasn't broken. He was building. Not a confrontation. A response. One afternoon I came home early and found him in the garage. He was hunched over some kind of box. Wires. A small electrical setup. When he saw me, he quickly shoved it aside. "Still working out here?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Helps clear my head," he said without looking at me. His calm was terrifying. It wasn't the rage I had feared, it was the total absence of emotion. Not despair. Not pain. Just calculation. I hesitated before leaving. "You know this is only for a while, right?" I said. "I'm not trying to destroy us." He finally looked up. His eyes were quiet flames. "You already did." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just turned and walked back inside, trying to ignore the weight of those 4 words and how final they sounded. In the weeks that followed, my nights with Noel became more daring. Parking lots. Hotel rooms. Once, in the back seat of his car during a thunderstorm, my laughter echoing in the dark. I felt alive. Sexy. Dangerous. But that thrill had a shadow. People started acting differently. A coworker, Rachel, stopped saying hi in the hallway. A sticky note appeared on my desk one morning: "Be careful who's watching." I laughed it off at first. Just office gossip. But then Sierra called me, her voice breathless. "I think something's happening." "What do you mean?" "I got a weird call. Someone's digging into us. Into everything we've been doing. And someone's talking to HR." My stomach dropped. "You think it's Gavin?" "You said he's calm." "That's exactly who you should be afraid of." That night, I checked my laptop. There was a folder on my desktop I hadn't seen before. It was titled simply, "Lena, Personal." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were screenshots. Messages. GPS logs. Even a spreadsheet titled encounters _confirmed.xlsx. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just spying. It was clinical. Cold. Timed. I deleted the folder in a panic, but it didn't matter. The message was clear: Gavin knew everything. At 3:08 a.m., I crept to the guest room and knocked softly. No answer. I pushed the door open. The bed was untouched. Gavin was gone. His truck wasn't in the driveway. His clothes still hung in the closet, but he had vanished. No note. No call. Just absence. I stood there in the dark hallway, clutching my phone, heart racing. I had wanted freedom. I had lit the match. Gavin had taken the gasoline and walked into the night. Gavin didn't come home the next day. Or the day after that. No calls. No texts. No receipts left on the kitchen counter like he always used to. Just silence. And silence, I learned, was a shapeshifter. At first, it felt like space air to breathe. Then, it became a void. Something deep and hollow and pulsing. The walls of our house felt too wide, the furniture too still. I didn't sleep much. And when I did, I woke up choking on dread I couldn't explain. I told myself he'd come back. Gavin always cooled off eventually. He was a man of habit, of predictability. He didn't do theatrics. But something had changed, I could feel it. On the third day, a letter arrived. No postage, no return address. Just my name on the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed cleanly, methodically. Lena, I won't stand in your way. But understand this, freedom is never free. Watch carefully now. I read it 3 times, heart pounding louder with every pass. The tone was unmistakable, not angry. Not emotional. Just intentional. I called Sierra. No answer. I messaged Noel. Silence. My hands started to shake. I checked my social media, then our company messaging app. Something was wrong. Something was happening. Then my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Whitmore? A voice said. This is Officer Brannick with Hawthorne Bay Police. We've received a report involving your vehicle. What? My car is in the... No, ma'am. It's your husband's truck. It was found abandoned in Maple Hollow, several miles outside of town. Based on how it was left, we believe it was intentionally dumped. I couldn't breathe. Is Gavin okay? He's not missing. In fact, we spoke to him yesterday. He requested we notify you that all assets associated with your name and your marital estate are in the process of being transferred. He's also filed a protection order. You'll receive a formal court notice by 4 p.m. today. The call ended. I collapsed onto the floor. I didn't even hear the rest of the officer's words. I just stared ahead, eyes dry but burning. Protection order? Transferred assets? It didn't make sense. Gavin wasn't vindictive. He wasn't even confrontational. But he had vanished into action. And he was erasing me in the process. Then it hit me. The files. The surveillance. The spreadsheets. He wasn't documenting me for closure. He was building a case. I checked my work email. There was a message from HR, a mandatory meeting. Subject, ethics review. My vision blurred. I clicked on it, but before I could process what I was reading, I received another ping, a forwarded Slack file. Anonymous sender. No message. Just the file name, some vows break themselves. .mp4. I opened it. Low lighting. A bedroom. My bedroom. A voice, mine, laughing, whispering. Another voice, Noel's. The bedspread unmistakably ours. The video didn't show much. It didn't have to. The audio was enough. My tone. My laughter. The betrayal wrapped in sound. That morning, I tried calling Sierra again. When she finally answered, her voice was small. Hollow. He did it, she said. He's burning everything. What do you mean? My landlord got an email. Footage. Me and Miles. Me and Reese. Stuff I didn't even know was recorded. Lena, he's not just exposing you. He's coming for all of us. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. I found files on my laptop, I said, whispering. He's been tracking me for weeks. And leaking it, piece by piece. I just got suspended, Sierra muttered. HR says they're investigating ethics violations. I don't even know what to say. I paced my living room like a woman trapped in her own skin. You told me this would be harmless. No, Sierra replied, her voice edged with something bitter. I told you it would be fun. You believed it would be harmless. There's a difference. You said men always come back. That they love confident women. She laughed, cold and sharp. I was wrong. Gavin isn't like the others. He's surgical. The next day, I was called into the boardroom at work. HR, legal, and a man I didn't recognize, security, probably were waiting. They offered me coffee. I declined. They slid a thick file across the table. Inside were screenshots, office location logs, message histories with Noel, with Sierra. Even my company calendar had been cross-referenced with badge swipes and security footage. The HR director read from a page with practice detachment. We believe this represents a conflict of interest, misuse of company resources, and violation of the internal code of conduct. My voice trembled. How did you get all this? No one answered. The security officer cleared his throat. We also received audio recordings from a third party. Gavin, I whispered. Still no reply. They didn't fire me on the spot. They said the matter was under internal review. But I already knew what that meant. I left the building on legs that barely worked. When I got home, my key didn't fit the front door. The locks had been changed. My belongings were already boxed. Sitting neatly on the porch. Labeled. Sorted. Taped. And on top of the first box, a note, you lit the match. I simply watched it burn. Welcome to the freedom you wanted. I sank to the concrete, knees folding under me, surrounded by everything I used to call mine. Gavin wasn't cold anymore. He was calculated. And in that moment, I realized revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispers. And sometimes, it simply documents. I brought the boxes to Sierra's apartment that night. She barely spoke as I dropped them inside and began pacing her living room. I couldn't sit still. Couldn't breathe right. The world I had built was collapsing brick by brick, but it wasn't chaos, it was precision. Every hit landed with surgical intent, like Gavin had studied my life under a microscope and pulled the pieces apart without ever laying a hand on me. Have you spoken to Noel? I asked, hoping for something stable, even if it was a lie. Sierra didn't look up. His wife kicked him out. You didn't know he was married? My heart stopped. He told me they were separated. Sierra finally met my eyes. Yeah. That's what they say when they want what they can't keep. Within days, my reputation was more than just damaged, it was obliterated. Screenshots of my flirty messages, whispers, and romantic innuendos were scattered across anonymous forums, social media threads, and local gossip pages. It wasn't just coworkers whispering anymore, it was strangers pointing. Reading. Judging. I knew Gavin was behind it, not by name, but through the unmistakable fingerprints of restraint. He never commented. Never posted. Never gloated. He didn't need to. He had turned the entire world into a mirror and forced me to watch myself decay. I tried to speak up. I recorded a 2-minute video for social media, my face raw, my voice shaking, trying to explain. To defend. I didn't make it past the first hour before deleting it. The comments came fast. You wanted freedom, now live in it. Imagine ruining your own life and blaming everyone else. He never raised his voice, and she still made him the villain. The digital pitchforks stabbed deep. But the worst part? Gavin's silence still loomed louder than any comment. He hadn't sent a single message. Not one "I told you so." And that destroyed me more than any public shaming. Then came the legal documents. Divorce proceedings, fast-tracked. Delivered to Sierra's apartment. Gavin had hired Iris Delaney, the kind of attorney whose name alone made people fold. Cold, elegant, relentless. I sat across from her in the mediation room, barely holding myself upright. She didn't flinch. "You are entitled to nothing," she said with the calm of someone delivering a weather report. "No home, no car, no spousal support. We have recordings. Witnesses. A timeline. And most importantly, intent." My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. But we were still married. He never told me to stop. Iris looked at me, eyes sharp as glass. "He gave you the rope, Miss Whitmore. You tied the knot." The hearing was short. Brutally efficient. The judge barely glanced in my direction. Gavin didn't speak a word. He didn't have to. The evidence spoke loud enough. Messages. Hotel logs. Security footage. It all painted the same picture, and it was painted in ink too dark to wash off. In his only statement to the court, Gavin stood with the same calm I used to find comforting and said, "My wife didn't cheat on me. She abandoned the marriage. She asked for freedom. I gave it to her. But she also gave me clarity. I didn't lose a wife. I lost someone who never intended to stay." That silence in the room, that breathless stillness, was louder than any gavel. That night, I checked into a motel. The kind with flickering lights and cracked tiles. My phone buzzed once. It was Sierra. "You okay?" I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered, then typed, "You told me this would feel empowering. You said men crawl back." Mine burned the bridge. I got no reply. She was probably dealing with her own collapse. Rumors said her husband was filing for full custody. Miles had skipped town. Reese blocked her. It was as if every man we thought we could control had been quietly waiting to flip the script. I didn't sleep. I kept rereading Gavin's final note, "You lit the match." I simply watched it burn. It repeated in my mind like a verdict. I tried to drink it away. I tried to write over it in my head. But it was seared into me now. And Gavin, he never gloated. Never came back. Never once reminded me of what I'd done. Because he didn't need to. He had already won. The days blurred. The headlines faded from the front page, but the whispers followed me like shadows. Every job application was a dead end. Every interview ended the same: polite smiles, lingering doubt, and a quiet apology after someone inevitably Googled me. 3 months after everything collapsed, I found myself standing in front of a receptionist's desk at a small dental office. The manager, a woman in her 50s, looked at me with measured kindness. I'm going to be honest with you, Lena, she said gently. We looked you up. And while I don't believe everything I read online, we did contact your last employer. There were concerns. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. She didn't need to say more. I thanked her and left, dignity wrapped in silence. Again. That night, I wandered the neighborhood where Gavin and I used to live. Our house had already been sold. It looked different now, new paint, tidy hedges, flower pots on the porch. It was like the place had been scrubbed clean of me. Erased. But I hadn't come to see the house. I came for something that never arrived, closure. Gavin never yelled. Never cursed me out. Never came undone. He didn't even send one of those desperate, late-night, rage-fueled texts I used to brace for. He just closed the door and left it shut. And it drove me mad. Because I had nothing to fight against. Nothing to hate. No fire to dodge. Just silence. And that silence was a scream I had to live inside. A few nights later, I slipped into the back of a local bookstore, soaked in rain, unnoticed by the small crowd gathered for a talk on reinvention after ruin. I didn't go looking for hope. I wasn't expecting answers. But the speaker, a middle-aged woman with a tired smile and a steady voice, said something that cracked something inside me open. You can lose everything and still survive. But if you don't own your choices, you'll keep burning every bridge you cross. Accountability isn't punishment. It's the first brick in rebuilding. The words didn't comfort me. They burned. But the burn felt right. Necessary. The next morning, I sat at a tiny motel desk and wrote a letter. Not for forgiveness. Not even for reconciliation. Just truth. Gavin, you never gave me the dignity of a fight, and that was the loudest pain I've ever heard. I won't defend what I did. I confused attention for love. I listened to someone who celebrated chaos and called it freedom. But you didn't destroy me. I did. And somehow, even in your quiet, calculated revenge, you still gave me more grace than I ever deserved. I don't expect a reply. I just wanted to say, thank you. For walking away instead of finishing me off. For letting me crash instead of pushing me off the edge. For reminding me that silence can be the loudest answer of all. I didn't sign it with love. Just my name. I mailed it to his new business address. No return info. No expectations. Just closure. Or something like it. Weeks passed. Nothing came. No message. No call. Just more empty motel nights, more court-ordered community service. As part of my restitution, I was required to volunteer at a women's shelter, women who had survived abuse, manipulation, real trauma. I felt like an imposter at first. My wounds were self-inflicted. But showing up, even in shame, became something grounding. One evening, while stepping outside the shelter to grab coffee from a nearby diner, a pickup truck pulled into the lot. Same model. Same dent on the bumper. My chest tightened before I even saw his face. Gavin stepped out, toolbox in hand, wearing the same worn boots he always had. His eyes met mine. He didn't look angry. Didn't look bitter. Just still. Hey, Lena, he said, like no war had ever happened between us. My throat closed. Why are you here? I build things, he said simply. The shelter's adding a new wing. They called me. I laughed softly, almost bitter. Of course they did. He hesitated, then added, I got your letter. I swallowed. I didn't expect a response. I didn't plan to give one, he said. But I wanted to say something. I waited. You were right, he said finally. I didn't fight. Not because I didn't care, but because if I had, I wouldn't have stopped. And I didn't want to become something worse just to get even. I blinked fast, trying not to cry. You already got even. He gave a half smile. I didn't destroy you, Lena. I just let you face the mirror. A long silence stretched between us. The drizzle tapped softly against the shelter roof. I looked up at him, this man I had once known so well, and now barely recognized. And yet, somehow, still understood. Are you happy now? I asked. He turned his gaze to the scaffolding beside the building, the frame of something unfinished but promising. I'm healing, he said. That's better than happy. I nodded, my voice too raw to speak. Me too. And for a brief moment, in the middle of all that ruin, we stood there. Two people who had burned each other to the ground and somehow, against all odds, walked out of the smoke. Scarred. But breathing. He didn't stay long. After our brief conversation outside the shelter, Gavin nodded once, then walked past me, toolbox in hand, disappearing through the side entrance like he belonged there more than I ever had. I stood frozen in place, letting the drizzle soak through my sweater, watching his silhouette vanish into the scaffolding. He hadn't forgiven me. Not really. But he had acknowledged me. And in a world that had tried to erase me, that was something. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I just sat in my tiny room at the shelter, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft creaks of the building as if it too were trying to hold itself together. I wasn't sure what I felt. It wasn't peace. But it also wasn't pain. It was balance. A kind of painful clarity I had been too selfish to let in before. The next week, I showed up early to my shift. Gavin was already there, talking to one of the site managers, pointing out measurements on a blueprint like none of this had ever happened. I didn't interrupt. I just watched him from a distance, not as a man I wanted back, but as a man I had misunderstood. I used to think his silence meant indifference. Now I knew better. It was discipline. A form of strength I never learned to appreciate until it was used against me. That day, I scrubbed tile floors and cleaned out storage closets without complaint. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't punishment. It was the first step toward earning the right to move forward. I didn't ask him for a second conversation, and he didn't offer one. We existed in the same space without tension, just a kind of heavy understanding that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. A few times, I caught him watching me. Not with judgment. Not with longing. Just observing. Like he was making peace with his own choices too. And I suppose, in some quiet, human way, we both were. Months passed. I found a new job at a florist shop across town, small, quiet, no background check required. I started sleeping better. Smiling more. I stopped checking my phone for messages that weren't coming. I no longer felt the need to defend myself in front of strangers who had already made up their minds. Let them talk. Let them judge. The people who mattered weren't listening to the noise. I never heard from Noelle again. Or Sierra. Rumor had it she moved back in with her parents and started therapy. Maybe she was rebuilding too. Maybe not. Either way, she became just another chapter one didn't feel the need to reread. My world got smaller, simpler. And somehow, that felt right. One day, as I was locking up the flower shop, I saw Gavin across the street, standing outside a hardware store with a clipboard in hand. He didn't see me. He looked good. Settled. I didn't wave. I didn't approach. I just let the moment pass like a leaf in the wind. He had healed. I had survived. That was enough. Sometimes I wonder if he ever thinks about me, not out of longing, but curiosity. Whether he ever rereads my letter. Whether he regrets the silence. But the truth is, I no longer need the answer. Because now, when I hear silence, I don't panic. I don't fill it with noise. I let it be what it is: stillness. Space. A reminder that healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the absence of chaos. I once believed revenge needed flames to feel complete. I thought justice meant destruction. But Gavin taught me something I'll never forget: the most powerful revenge is not rage. It's dignity. It's not screaming back, it's walking away and letting the other person hear the echo of their own choices. And now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the woman who begged for attention, who confused recklessness for power. I see someone scarred, yes, but standing. Breathing. Learning. Rebuilding. Not forgiven. But finally, honest.
Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, shocked you, or simply made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment, your thoughts, your story, your truth. Subscribe for more raw, real, and unforgettable confessions. And if this story made you feel seen, share it. Someone else might need to hear it too. You're not alone here. This channel is a safe space for those who've been betrayed, broken, and rebuilt.